that constantly is going through when it comes to the business chain. So in order um, for our company, once we develop our plan, once we develop our budget, okay, that's great. How am I going to get that money though? I got to have somebody that's fronting me some of that money to get that. And that's where these institutions are going to come into play. That's where once we do get the business developed and on, if it's a public company, that's where the stock market comes into play that gives us the ability to buy in and also keep money flowing in for those businesses, right? So that's one of the markets. So that's a very good way to look at it, what you were sharing. Um, and you kind of answered this, Neuron, but here's what I'd like everybody to do for a couple minutes, okay? Because I do want to get interaction. I don't like my classes being just me speaking to you. Here's an activity I want you to take about 5 minutes. Um, we could let's say take until about 10:35. Let's do that. I want you guys to identify a specific scenario where direct financing would be beneficial for the funds supply and the funds demander. Okay. Identify a second specific scenario where indirect financing would be beneficial for both the fund supply and the fund demander. Okay. Here's what I want you to do. Where do you guys think, based on that question, where are you going to do some quick researching for me? Not only based on what I shared with you, but what do you think is going to be the quickest way to find something to kind of give a scenario?
Google's.
There we go, baby. Google is God these days, and not being religious, I apologize, but Google is where we go. So if you wanted to quickly find an example, go into Google. You could copy here. I'll tell you what I'll do. We're going to copy this for you. All right, and let's see here. Come on. Maximize my screen size. Hide that. And where's my chat function? All right, here we go. All right. So that's the question. I want you to identify a specific scenario where direct financing would be beneficial for the fund supply and the funds demander. Identify a second specific scenario where indirect financing would be beneficial for the funds supply and funds demander. So again, direct financing ultimately funds the supplier purchases. Indirect financing, the funds demander obtains financing from a financial intermediary. So again, the intermediary obtains the funds by offering different claims. Okay?
Professor, I have an example. Can I
Okay.
share?
Yes.
For example, if we continue about the topic you have opened, the startup. So, if I'm going to make a startup, for example,
Mm-hmm.
so it will be a direct funding if I gone to a group of my friends and told them about the idea, and you can like sponsor me or share with me with money, and I'm with the idea, and let's work together.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be a direct funding from my friends. But if I'm going to do same startup, and if I went to the bank as a financial institution or financial market, and I said I want to have a credit to do a project or a startup, so it is indirect because already the money in the bank is not for the bank himself, it is for other customers who added money to the bank,
Mm-hmm.
and then the bank gave to me to invest in my project.
Right. Right. And that's exactly right. And you just brought up a good example when it comes to that, because with the banks, And again, sometimes I work ahead, but with the banks, the money that you and I put in gets put into a, I'm going to use the word coffer. It gets put in. So do you think that the millions of dollars big banks have sits in that bank and just sits there? No. It's a continual cycle. It's in and out of the bank, right? And so that gives you that ability neuron. So that was a great example. Thank you for that. And so let's do this. Does anybody have a quick example or quick response, or are you still researching it? You've got until 10:35. You know what I should do? I should add Jeopardy. Do you guys know about Jeopardy? I should add Jeopardy music while you're
No,
researching.
I don't. It's my first time to
Okay,
hear it.
Ahmed, Jeopardy is a game show that's been on forever in the U.S. And basically, at the end of the game, when there's like a final, what they call a final Jeopardy round, where they get asked a question and they have to say how much money they want to bet and they want to answer. There's this song that plays in the background. They have 30 seconds to kind of write their answer down. That's essentially what it is. So, all right.
Okay, I saw that it's Jeopardy is like race, but it's a game. Okay.
Yeah. No, exactly. And let me do this. Let me make sure that our session is recording for us. Let's see here. Yes, it does show.
It is recorded.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to make sure, and our reason is because of the students who aren't able to join. Obviously, we want to put this in the room for everybody, right? So they have something to rely on. Sarah, thank you for joining us. I appreciate having you here. And all right, we'll go ahead and get started. Does anybody have an example of, or based on the question that was asked? Does anybody have any information they would love to share?
Well, I believe that using the direct money, like taking money from directly from a person or entity to use it in something else, that's a direct financing. While using the money through a medium, that's indirect financing.
That's correct. Okay. Now, what do you think? And maybe again, I'm working ahead a little bit, but I'm trying to get you guys thinking. From your perspective, what's the easiest route here? Is it to go to colleagues or somebody that you know to give financing, or is it easier to go to the mediator, that intermediary, right? What are your thoughts?
Well, each method has its risks and benefits. If
Mm-hmm.
I go to a family or a friend, I might get the money directly, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and fast. But at the same time, our relation, in case of, let's say, my project failed or doesn't bring uh, what they call the outcome fast, my relation with this person might be in risk. Okay,
Exactly.
why
Okay.
other way around?
Yeah, that's
If I take
exactly
it from a bank or a loan, okay,
right.
there is no relation except it is money. Okay, if I don't pay, I go to prison.
Yeah.
This is also a risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And so now we're talking morally, right? But again, that's not the purpose of the question, but you're exactly right. Which way is the easiest to go? And again, I've experienced a startup that has not done well. It was being self-funded, direct funded. So guess what? No revenue was being presented. Okay. And so the monies eventually went away. Right. Now, on the positive side, the individual did know anybody. You did owe potentially a family member that had invested, but could pay that back in time. But Ahmed, you made a good point. When you are relying on the banks and that, if you're not paying them back, it can negatively impact your ability to go towards other investments in the future, other ventures, etc. Right? So as you can see, there's definitely risks, but there's good potential gains. Anybody else have anything they would like to share, or anybody experienced this before in the industry that you've worked in? Let's talk practical. Have you experienced this, and what was an outcome? You don't have to give company names, family names, or anything, but have you actually experienced this?
Yes, for me. So because if I use the direct financing, I I need to pay the interest. But if I borrow it from a friend, then maybe okay, you just borrow and return it back, or to my boss, you can borrow money, and
Mhm.
okay, if you have a close relationship. But if I know if you don't go to the financing, there is no revenue. But so it depends on the borrower if which one you like to go. That's my
Mhm.
experience.
Right, right. And it's very interesting because I've been taking a look with my business on how I want to go about financing it. So for me, I made the decision that um, I'm going to do the direct financing of it. Not that I have a lot of money, but I don't want to go through the hassle of attempting to um, go to the bank. I'm trying to minimize my risk, right? That Ahmed was just talking about, which again, we're going to get into risk here shortly. But I wanted to try to minimize that. So I'm trying to take an approach of, based on all of the other projects I'm working on, using the additional resources and the money to put into said business, right? So that's a way we can go with it. Okay. Great. This has been a good discussion. Thank you guys. I love it. Again, anytime you want to chime in, please do. Now, let's go diving into the primary versus the secondary markets. Okay. So we've already established what's a direct and an indirect market. So if we want to purchase a claim from the ultimate funds in a primary market, or what we call indirect financing, we're using a financial institution. The financial institution, again, we've talked about, is lending us the money directly, right? In the cases where we desire to place money directly into a market and we want to see where we can get money back in return, investment bankers, asset brokers, we're going to go into what we say an initial public offering. So we're saying that for my business, I'm going to give you to fund me stock in my company, right? This is where what we call an IPO. And Naran, you were talking about this earlier. We were talking about the stock market. Here is a way for me or you to get money back by putting into somebody's business. We're investing in their business. Now, we have a risk. Are we going to make money out of it potentially? If they've got a good product, chances are, right? Look at the Facebooks of the world. Look at the Meta, or it's now Meta, right? Look at the Amazons of the world. Do you know, and you guys may know this, whether it be from courses you've taken or just the reading you've done or experiences you've had, that if you look at the financial plan that Amazon put together, they said that for the first 5 years when Bezos created it, they were going to lose money. So what does that do for an investor that wants to put money into them? There's a risk there. There's a high risk, but there could be a handsome reward. So a person that put money into Amazon, right, in the stock market, etc., how do you think they're doing now? Anybody want to answer that one? What do you think? Especially if they were an early investor. How do you think they're doing? Don't all speak up at once.
They're
All right.
taking free items.
What's that?
Are they taking free items?
Are they taking free items? I don't know if they're taking free items, but I will say this. I will say if they were an early investor, they've probably made some good money, depending on the amount of money that they invested, right? Now, again, remember when you're investing, you're not going to just pull out when they happen, especially that first 5 years, right? If you said, I'm going to lose money. But if you were somebody that invested in that business, you believed in it, that is that, you know, there is a good opportunity for you to earn a good future, right? There's the word, future. Why do people put into the stock market? They're investing in their future, and they're hoping that the money that they've initially invested in, continue to invest, is going to give them a good return on the end. Okay. So what's a secondary market doing? So a secondary market is existing to provide what we call liquidity and price information to the investor. These functions make the primary market more attractive. The investors are far less likely to invest in risky long-term primary securities unless they believe they can obtain updates of the current value of their claim. Okay, that means there's efficiency of operation in the secondary markets that affect the growth rate in the overall economy. The secondary markets, the trading volume has risen, okay, dramatically over the last several decades. Mergers emphasize the economies of scale in the exchange of business. Okay, so for example, the New York Stock Exchange merged with Euronext in 2006 and was acquired by the Intercontinental Exchange in 2013. Now, after a failed merger attempt by Deutsche, the CME and CBOT have also merged. So what I want you to think about are the pros and cons of having only one owner of the largest US stock market versus having foreign ownership of the largest market. Okay? So think about that. What are the pros?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Yes. So I want you to think about the pros and the cons of having only one owner of the largest US stock market versus having foreign ownership of our largest market. So here's what I want you to think about. Electronic trading is growing, right? We live in a different world these days because of technology. So our market structures, the exchange floors, it's very difficult to maintain profitability. Now, I want to try to put this all in context because it's a lot of language. You're seeing a lot of words on page. I want you guys to think of the primary market as a distributor to a grocery store, right? The wholesaler, who was it that works in agriculture? See, I'm bad. Okay, Rhoda, you work with agriculture, so you're supplying the grocery store. The secondary market is the grocery store that's selling to the consumer, right? That's essentially what we're looking at. But back to my question is, I want you to think about what's the pro and the con of having one owner, basically versus having multiple owners of our potential stock, right? What we've invested in. Does that make sense when I ask that question? Or do I need to clarify a little bit more?
I think it's clear.
You think it's clear? Okay. What do you think are the pros and cons of this? So what's a pro, right? What's a plus of having only one owner versus multiple owners?
The pros can be the profit.
Okay. The profit. Okay, that's a pro.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Dealing with one entity